The office in charge of cybersecurity for Colorado announcing mass layoffs today.
The state just laid off 173 employees.
Nearly 200 state employees were let go.
Overhaul of how the state's Office of IT works
Undergoes a major overhaul.
John is also tracking fallout from an audit of the Office of Information Technology. You're going to want to hear this.
finding major cybersecurity concerns.
Dozens of deficiencies.
We have 20 and 30 and 35 issues every year.
We do not have even one more day to delay.
Of a major breach.
She discovered $36 million in an obscure account in the office.
There's something more nefarious going on.
Threats that are growing and changing with artificial intelligence and quantum computing.
What is happening in Colorado? If you took these news clips at face value, you'd think that the state government's tech office was embezzling money or rampantly firing people, and maybe you'd get flashbacks of DOGE. But the truth is that the state of Colorado is changing how it works in big ways that, if successful, will drastically improve the lives of Coloradans for decades to come. They're shaking up the government office that runs all of the state's technology, not just laptops and printers, but the backbone behind every public service in the state. Medicaid, preschool, food stamps, taxes, unemployment checks, licensure, public health, state highways, birth certificates, grants, literally all of it. That IT office is getting a huge upgrade that is both painful and long overdue. I'm Mark Lerner. I've researched and worked in government tech for over a decade, and I want to talk about what's changing, why it's needed, who's behind it, and what's coming for Coloradans. Let's talk about Colorado's Office of Information Technology. First, a quick explanation of the Office of Information Technology, or OIT. It's a government agency that supports all of the rest of the state government in their use of technology. You might imagine it as tech support for printers, email, and internet access, but it's much more than that. Every public service operated by the state, from natural resource management to transportation planning, relies on technology. Whether it's a public website, online form, or some back-end processing system, digital tools are the backbone of how government operates. And because of that, OIT has an enormously outsized impact on the entirety of government. To illustrate just how important that underlying tech is, I want to talk about an example where failures in the state of Colorado's technology had deep and tangible effects on the lives of Coloradans. The Supplemental Nutrition Assistance Program, SNAP, formerly known as food stamps. SNAP is a critical lifeline that almost 600,000 Coloradans in need rely on to feed themselves and their families. But for years, Colorado has been among the worst in the country in providing SNAP assistance to families.
People in Denver are waiting weeks for delayed SNAP benefits, formerly known as food stamps.
This month, after his SNAP food benefits that normally come on the 1st never came.
Your SNAP balance is $5.21.
It's not on there yet.
I wasn't even able to pay my rent because I had to make a decision whether or not my kids were going to eat. And so now I'm facing eviction because I had to use my rent money to feed my children.
This glitch means families will be waiting for days to get the food and medical benefits they need.
All the paperwork done, everything good to go. But now they said the computers were going down, so now we have to wait till Monday to receive our benefits.
For over 2 decades, Colorado wasn't processing SNAP applications on time, meaning that families didn't get the money they needed to buy groceries and were left to make the impossible decision about how to afford to feed themselves and their families. This goes as far back as 2004, when the state of Colorado was first sued over how delayed they were in getting people their SNAP dollars. More than 70% of applications for food stamps were delayed by at least a month. Flash forward to 2016, and Colorado was ranked among the worst states in the country for getting food aid to the needy. More recently, in 2023, over 100,000 families faced delays in receiving their much-needed food support. Across all of these years, different factors faded in and out that added to the delays, like the 2008 financial crisis or the 2020 COVID pandemic. But there was one root cause that remained consistent since the beginning, one factor that held the brunt of the blame year in and year out: the Colorado Benefits Management System. The Colorado Benefits Management System was the software that the state used to process SNAP and other benefits, like Medicaid. The state has paid hundreds of millions of dollars for this system, but from the moment that it launched in 2004, it was causing problems. System lag and full-blown outages prevented the government from processing applications, leading to the massive statewide delays in getting families their SNAP funds. Internal users of the system begged for relief from its inefficiencies and slowness. State officials regularly pointed to it as the major cause of delays. The system involved over 700 websites, and anytime something went wrong, one of over 30 different contracted companies had to be tracked down to fix the issue. For over 2 decades, the Colorado Benefits Management System was directly responsible for people in need not receiving the SNAP benefits that they were entitled to. The SNAP program is just one example of where Colorado's technology, and by extension, the Office of Information Technology, had failed its residents. Colorado's Medicaid program, the state's universal preschool signups, even confusing state tax returns, all of these high-profile services had huge issues rooted in their technology. And it wasn't just the public that was dealing with a struggling IT office. As I mentioned before, OIT provides tech services to all other state agencies, and among its clients in government, OIT had an abysmally low approval rating. Those other agencies regularly found ways to avoid working with OIT, including just building their own technical staff. And recently, the Office of Information Technology was accused of overcharging for their services after an unaccounted for $36 million was found in OIT's coffers. But some of the most damning indicators of internal distrust for OIT come from anonymous state employees sharing their thoughts online. I'm a state employee, and getting OIT approval for even a small project took months. I interviewed with them in 2024 and was surprised at how outdated and out of touch their processes, security controls, and employees were. I had to turn in my laptop because I had space issues. I got a crappy old loaner that dies at 50% battery and won't get my original back for 3 months. I have to bring a new person 20 miles up to speed every time I need something done. I am always treated as if I am the dumbest bag of rocks. OIT is a fucking show, overbilling every other department to an insane degree while providing fucking horrible service. So clearly there are some issues with the Office of Information Technology. But what was it about the office that caused these issues? What was so wrong about how they worked? Now, I'd usually go looking through a bunch of audit reports, news coverage, and legislative hearings to figure out what went wrong. I mean, I still did that, but it turns out I didn't have to. Just last month, as part of announcing its changes, the Office of Information Technology published 2 documents outlining its new strategic direction, and they included their own thoughts on what's been going wrong. In these reports, they boiled down these big systemic failures to one core fault. OIT's structures, processes, bureaucracies, their ways of working, it's all been built to serve itself, not the other Colorado state government agencies, and not the public. To drive this home, they point out 5 ways that OIT struggles that all stem from that root cause. First, the technology that the state runs on requires a lot of manual effort. Instead of using automated tools and systems that do the work for them, OIT has been working by hand. They give the example of learning about system outages not from automated alarms, but from people getting in touch with them saying some website or service is offline. Second, they call it how expensive it is for other government departments to work with OIT. The IT office operates on what's called a cost recovery model, meaning that instead of having their own standalone budget to do all of their work, OIT charges other government agencies anytime they do work for them. And historically speaking, they've been charging based on how much effort the work takes, not whether they actually accomplish their goals. This is like paying hourly for a plumber who works for dozens of hours, but never fixes the leak. Given the earlier point about how much manual work there was, it's also not surprising that these costs were so high. This is also the source of that $36 million mystery fund from before. OIT had apparently been charging even more than they actually needed to, and had just built up a stack of cash at the expense of other government programs. The third issue basically comes from the first two. Other Colorado state government agencies avoid working with OIT whenever they can. They would just rather do the work themselves. They don't want to pay all that money, and they don't want to deal with manual and slow services. The fourth takes a little bit of context. Part of OIT's job is to create rules for how tech projects should be run, then ensure that all tech projects across the state are following those rules. These rules can be all sorts of things, like the system must rotate passwords every 6 months, or all PDFs must work with Adobe Acrobat version 12. The problem is that the list of rules is way too long. It only ever gets added to, never removed from. And so it has tons of extra rules that just don't make sense anymore. As the state itself said, these lists are a muddle that punishes the teams trying to do good work and protects no one from the risks that actually matter. The last issue is maybe the most disappointing one. Because other government agencies work around OIT so often, some of them end up building their own skilled technical teams. Unfortunately, OIT has historically treated these teams as a problem to be managed, rather than a resource and a peer group to be supported. There's a bunch of other problems that the state and its leaders cited as things that need to change, such as outdated funding models, a risk-averse compliance culture, requiring massive upfront documentation, and more. But the root cause they pointed to is succinct, poignant, and it really does loop it all together. The Office of Information Technology was built to serve itself over serving other state agencies and the public. It's an issue with the way the office is structured and organized, the policies and processes it follows, the culture that's been built up over the years and been solidified by procedures and directives. It's a fundamental flaw in the fabric of the office, and that is what Colorado is finally trying to address. The state is reforming its IT shop in two ways. First, they're changing the makeup of the Office of Information Technology. Who works there, how it's structured, who leads it. Second, they're changing how OIT works, its operations, its ethos. I'll dig into those meta changes in a bit, but let's start with the more immediate adjustments. The most tangible and immediate shifts were the layoffs. On May 27th, the Office of Information Technology laid off 173 people, about 15% of its 1,000 plus person workforce. These layoffs focused on the roles and skills that the state is moving away from: project managers, business analysts, and other types of compliance-forward professions. At the same time, they created nearly 100 new positions with newer and more modern skill sets. They're hiring service designers, product managers, delivery engineers, and other types of professions that adapt modern private sector tech jobs to the public sector context. Then there's the turnover at the executive level, which has been going on for a while actually, and has been dizzying to track. As part of this whole transition, Colorado's Chief Information Officer, the head of the Office of Information Technology, and a leader appointed by the governor, stepped down. The now former Chief Information Officer, David Ettinger, was a longtime public servant. In his place, the state elevated Sarah Thunberg, who had been one of Ettinger's deputies and the head of the Colorado Digital Service. Now, hold on to this, because we'll talk more about Ettinger, Thunberg, and the Colorado Digital Service later on. Aside from the Chief Information Officer, multiple other executive positions across OIT have also been removed.
We no longer have a technology office, we no longer have a data office, we no longer have a chief operating officer, and the offices that reported into that role.
In the months leading up to the layoffs, the chief data officer, chief technology officer, chief customer officer, and chief operations officer were all removed. When I see the extent to which leadership roles have shuffled, it's pretty clear that what's going on now has been coming for a while. Even if the full scope of plans weren't in motion as these positions started to be cut, I'm willing to bet it was all part of one long and continuous conversation. Okay, so that's the more tangible stuff. 170 layoffs, 100 new hires, a new chief information officer, and a bunch of other leaders removed. Now let's talk about those meta-level changes. With all these new leaders and new talent in place, what will OIT actually do differently? In the same documents they published where they outlined their faults and issues, OIT also detailed their new ways of working. They called it their North Star. As they put it, OIT is shifting from a project-based operating model led by time, scope, and budget to a product-based model led by outcomes and customer value. Instead of focusing on compliance and requirements, all of their work will center the needs of the people they're serving. They'll be accountable not to whether they followed a specific process or timeline, but by the results they actually deliver and the reality they make better. The core concept of this new model is that outcomes matter more than outputs. What you actually change in the world is more important than the individual things you create. If you publish 100 reports about a problem, but the problem doesn't get any better, that's not a success. The work is only done when the problem is solved for the public. To do this, they'll be using modern best practices for building public digital services. From now on, when they work on a tech project, like the Colorado Benefits Management System, they'll work directly with their users, prototype new solutions, and continuously improve what they're building. They'll also build and empower small teams of technical talent, each of which will be dedicated to working directly with another state agency. To build these teams, they're changing how they hire and manage their workforce, including investing in reskilling. And behind the scenes, they'll reevaluate every process they run and every rule they enforce to ensure it makes it easier to do good work. As the state noted in their press release, the result is an organization with fewer people managing processes and more people doing the important work of improving online services that support Colorado families. I cannot stress enough how seismic these shifts are. Changing the entire makeup of a government agency takes time, planning, and authority. I dug into who was behind this plan, and what I found made me realize how fragile this new era might be and how Coloradans will directly contribute to its success or failure in the very near future. The most public face of these changes so far has been Colorado's former Chief Information Officer, David Ettinger. He's quoted across news coverage and in Colorado's press releases talking about the redesign of OIT, and by the way he talks about it, he was a critical decision maker behind the layoffs, the leadership changes, and the new organizational direction. It's also clear that it was a very heavy decision for him, given the 173 staff that he laid off as part of the plan. As he explained in an interview with the Denver Post, "I've tried everything else, but I've come to the conclusion after 2 years of analyzing this that the only way for Colorado to get the OIT it deserves is for a structural change." Ettinger's replacement, Sarah Thunberg, was also part of planning these reforms. As I mentioned before, Thunberg had been the head of the Colorado Digital Service, which is a small but mighty team within OIT that has been the exception to their challenges. Founded in 2019, the Colorado Digital Service was built from the ground up to employ these modern ways of working. Since their founding, they've been behind some of the biggest successes in the state's recent history. When Colorado's SNAP systems continued to decline, they got involved and dramatically turned it around. They've worked on systems that support child welfare, unemployment checks, public utilities, and COVID-19 response. And for the last 7 years, the Colorado Digital Service has been showing that this new approach works. So, of course, Thunberg, her predecessors, and that whole team deserve massive credit for their work in improving this new model. Now that Ettinger has left, Thunberg will be the lead of all of OIT going forward. But there's a third, less obvious group that's behind these changes. The governor's office, and particularly the governor's office of operations. In a nutshell, the governor's office of operations is the group that works between the governor and all of the other leaders across state government to make things happen. They manage the operations of the state, including setting the governor's operational agenda and managing the governor's cabinet. And while there's no public acknowledgement of their involvement, it's easy to look across their work and see their support and encouragement for these changes. The two people leading this office, Jesse Marks and Emily Miller, are both big fans of these modern processes. They both come from backgrounds in the private sector and philanthropy, and have seen this model work in other organizations. In February, Miller offered high praise to the Colorado Digital Service, saying that bringing these technical experts in-house is enabling Colorado to shift from one-off projects to ongoing collaboration. In March, both Marks and Miller presented to other state and local government leaders about how critical modern practices and innovative digital talent has been to their work.
First thing we did was bring in a really good product manager from Colorado Digital Service. We wanted to make sure that we were focused more proactively on innovation so that we could be bringing modern practices of getting things done into state government.
Really big gaps in our talent, specifically in our digital talent, things like product management, user-centered design, engineering, things like that. We have an incredible partnership with our Colorado Digital Service team. Without their technical expertise, it'd be really tough to solve some of these challenges.
If you have a state digital service, become their best friends. Over time with the digital service, we've been kind of shifting our momentum towards controlling our own destiny.
And in their governor's operational agenda, the number one priority was to adopt modern software development practices like product management and user-centered design, launch an analytics program that will provide unprecedented transparency and accountability, and engage Colorado Digital Service experts to reimagine core digital products and services. Given how big of a change this is for one of the most influential government agencies, it makes a lot of sense that the governor's office was involved. There's a pretty big problem with this, though. Colorado's governor is in his last term, and Colorado has elections coming up this November. A new governor could come in and purposefully or accidentally undermine all of this progress by replacing Thunberg with someone dedicated to the old ways of doing things. Now, I don't live in Colorado, so I don't have a great view of the current candidates, but if you're watching this and you do live in Colorado, consider this when you're picking who to vote for. Maybe it's a hot take, but I think that any incoming governor would frankly be dumb if they ruined this incredible opportunity that was just set up for them. So where's all of this leading us? I see two paths, of course, generalizing a bit. If I'm being optimistic, then I'm extremely excited. This new version of the Office of Information Technology has hit the ground running and is going to be a huge boon for Colorado. At this rate, they'll probably build their small tech teams and send them to work with other state agencies by the end of the summer. They'll actively reskill the staff and transform processes at OIT. Public services will improve. New websites and digital interactions will be easy to use, and the incoming governor will champion and support their work. If I'm pessimistic, then I'm worried about how this could all be undone. First off, changing a 1,000-person organization doesn't happen overnight, and the internal resistance alone could kill the momentum. Second, groups overseeing OIT, like the state legislature, could just demand that they go back to their old ways of working and focus on documentation and compliance. Third, lobbyists for tech companies that are profiting off of the state's former model could push back if they fear losing lucrative contracts. And as I mentioned before, the incoming governor could come in and just decide that they want to take IT in a wholly different direction. My bet is on the first path. Changing how the state's technology is built and run will dramatically improve the quality of government services. If this works, Coloradans will start to see every single public service get better, slowly but consistently. Web applications for starting a new business or getting unemployment checks will get simpler and easier. And not just the digital stuff either. Call centers, in-person office visits, letters you receive in the mail, it will all improve as the state's underlying technology gets more reliable, usable, and effective. My last note here. I've mentioned the 173 people that were laid off, and it's hard not to imagine that the rest of those 1,000 workers at OIT aren't concerned by these massive changes. A bunch of their peers just got fired. New leadership is coming in, and there's all this talk about reskilling, reorging, and new hires. I'm willing to bet that there's a sense of shock within OIT right now. These changes, these documents and new strategies and the way that people are talking about it all, it can sound like a lot of criticism towards people who were, by and large, just doing their jobs. It's hard to hear people come in and say that the old way was bad without thinking of it as a reflection of the work you've been doing. And you have to remember that public servants are pretty nervous in general these days. And for the people that were laid off, well, layoffs suck. I've seen the LinkedIn and Reddit posts from the laid off folks, and they're reasonably upset at having lost their jobs. And from what I could find, the severance packages offered by the state were truly terrible, and they deserved a better send-off. In fact, if you're one of the 173 folks that were affected by the layoffs, I've linked some resources in the description below that could be helpful. I supported hundreds of other technologists in finding new work after they were fired from the federal government, and I hope that these resources can help you too. My hope is that everyone at Colorado's Office of Information Technology, new and old, can work together towards this new North Star. It's clear that how OIT had been operating wasn't working, and that it was the fault of some huge underlying structural failures. This new chapter for OIT started with a bang. And while it's a big shock, it's one that I'm betting will lead to a better Colorado. Thanks for watching.